DW Africa Link.
Tanzania first. No foreigners allowed. Yep, you heard that right. In late July, Tanzania introduced a new law banning foreigners from running 15 types of small businesses. We're talking mobile money transfers, beauty salons, small-scale mining, and even starting radio or TV stations. Break the rule, and you could be fined around 10 million shillings. That's about 4,000 US dollars. Or you could be jailed for 6 months and also lose your visa and residence permits. The government's rationale is to protect local businesses and promote economic growth. But who is really being targeted with this? And how could this shake up the region? That's what's coming up. I am Eddy Micah Jr., and you are welcome to Africa Link, the podcast connecting you to the stories that matter.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
As of July 28, 2025, foreign nationals are officially banned from running 15 types of small businesses in Tanzania. It's one of the strongest protectionist policies East Africa has seen in years. Locals are cheering, but across the region, it's raising eyebrows. Kenya has officially raised concern about this. Both countries are part of the East African Community, a regional bloc that promises free movement of goods, services, and people across 8 member states. Kenya says Tanzania's move could threaten that promise and shake the foundation of regional economic integration. For more on this, let's bring in Maurice Karimi, a financial analyst and development economist with experience across East Africa. I also have Andrew Wasike, DW correspondent in Nairobi, Kenya. Hello, welcome to Africa Link, both of you. Maurice, why would Tanzania ban foreign business in specific sectors? What is the business or economic sense in such a move, you think?
Thank you so much. And I think what Tanzania is trying to achieve in that is probably protecting the local industries for such specific sectors. Probably from what we have seen in other countries is that they do actually they try to protect the local industries. They try to do the naturalization of some of the industries. But I think the issue with that is that they are also trying to see, the import and export balance, where for some sectors, from what we have seen as part of the cushions for the government, is that they do that to protect the local the locals, as well as to just see if they can stabilize their currency, because it's also measured in terms of the import and export. So looking at those ways in terms of the economic sense of it, there will be pros and cons of that. But generally, when a government decides to do that, it's either to protect the local companies, or they are trying to just see if that would strengthen their currency and also the economy in terms of whatever they export vis-a-vis what is imported.
All right, thanks for that. Looking at some of the sectors, we're talking about mobile money, retail trade, even tour guiding, among others. What really are the pros and cons with Tanzania's current move?
Okay, so in the economic sense, what it does is that it will bring us proud. The need is there, but because it's not necessitated with the lack of the needs for these specific sectors in the economy. So what will happen in terms of the pros is that it can help the local companies that deal with those specific organizations to basically get that impact and also leverage on that market gap locally. There will be growth in terms of the local economy.
So we've heard about the pros, the possible pros in Tanzania's situation. What are the cons?
So the cons, basically, from where I look at it is, sometimes things that come out of the, for example, in the EACC from Kenya, for example, because of maybe the cost of production for some of the items, you will find that Tanzania will be losing out in the perspective that they are going to, maybe the goods might be a little bit expensive. Those embargoes that comes together with, stopping businesses in regards to other countries. You might find that there might, some of the aspects, because of the demand and supply aspects, the costing might go a little bit high. And with that, of course, the Tanzania people might also have that issue. The other thing is that they might be missing out on quality items because, localizing it sometimes is prone to, interference and by denoting that there's no competition from outside the country in terms of quality. So the quality of the things that might be produced or the services might deteriorate as well. We might also see this affecting the economy because, the expansion of an economy also is based on, input of items coming from, outside the country, the treaties that they make. You will find, in the long run, we have seen other countries try that, and they have, they have fallen a step back and they had to open their markets back.
Right.
So I would say those are the main items that would affect Tanzania economy because of that. Thank you.
Right. Andrew, let me come to you because, you are a correspondent in Kenya. For some reason, Kenyans have been very vocal against this move by Tanzania. I mean, Kenya, Tanzania, other countries make up the East African community, but why particularly Kenya being so against this, much loud against this, if you ask me?
Well, Tanzania has always been the closest partner when it comes to, regional friendship. Kenyans and Tanzanians have always been very, very close, and that's why you're seeing that there is concern in Nairobi. I know of a lot of people who run businesses in Tanzania and also here in Kenya, vice versa. So most of the people who are going to get hurt because of this are going to be from here in Kenya because they are not going to be able to access that market for their products in Tanzania. And there's no way we can just change policies of a day and say, okay, now we'll be sending our products to DRC because we've got market over there to us. So Kenyans love to travel to Tanzania to buy clothes, to buy shoes and all that. There's no way we can just wake up on a single day and say, okay, now we have to change everything. And I think this is why there's a lot of talk on social media.
Mm. How many Kenyans, or how frequently, based on your knowledge of this, do Kenyans actually operate businesses in Tanzania? Because there's one thing going to do shopping in Tanzania, and there's one thing Kenyans operating businesses in Tanzania, which seems to be what this current policy of Tanzania is trying to deal with.
I will not put a number on it, but I will say it's a big portion of especially the younger generation, because the younger generation has got this mindset where they want to become their own bosses. They are starting their own companies. And because we are part of the East African community, it's easier for a Kenyan to set up a business from an inheritance of, let's say, $3,000 or $4,000 in a foreign country, which is Tanzania, because we speak the same language, almost similar, just that they say that Swahili is a little bit, how can I say it? It's not as refined, but we speak the same language. And these are the trade barriers that are avoided just because of a language. The younger people right now are running businesses online, be it on Instagram, on Twitter. They are running physical companies in a way that I will deliver animal feed to a place in Arusha, or they will deliver milk to Kenya. And you remember, this is why there was that concern in 2020. Kenya banned Tanzanian maize imports, and it became crazy. Tanzania blocked Kenyan milk from going there. This was in 2020. So there was that sort of immigration tension. And this is what shows why we need to have this conversation as Kenya and Tanzania and not the other countries. But even when you go to DRC, this is their market. It's one of their biggest markets, and it works the same way. Like in Kenya, you give us this, we give you this. So banning people from owning a dairy farm in Arusha, you know, just because I have got the capital to run that, this is what has got people talking. And Eddie, I've been listening to online radio shows, you know, this is what people now are talking about.
Mm. And how's the government responding to this? I'm talking about Kenya's government. How are they responding to this move from Tanzania?
Well, there has been statements that have been made because there has been concern from Nairobi. The Tanzanian government says the move is to protect local traders, and but Kenyan business leaders who are also in the government, they view it as a threat to regional trade. And I think there was a statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs saying that it goes against the principles under the East African Community. So they have involved some policy makers who have called for clarity, asking whether this is a target, sort of a targeted move against all foreigners or just a pushback against Chinese retailers. I did not mention this because they are the people who control a large chunk of the market, also working with Kenyans and working with Tanzanians. But there's pressure for Kenya as a government to formally respond. But so far, it's been more of a wait-and-see approach, Eddie.
Right. Maurice, let me come to you because Andrew is touching on the legalities or not of this move when you look at the East African Community, EAC, right? I mean, this is a quote from Kenya's top official for East African Community Affairs. That's Caroline Karugu. She said in a statement on X, said, and I quote, Kenya has noted that the order is inconsistent with key provisions of the EAC Common Market Protocol, right? Further on said that it undermines the core objective of regional economic integration and poses a significant setback to the gains made under the East African Community Common Market Protocol. Does she have a point? I mean, is it even legal what Tanzania has done, Maurice?
Yeah. Of course, there is there is something that they're breaking in terms of the legality, because you see there is those treaties that have been signed between the East African Community, as you have alluded. There is also the common market, the blocks. It's called the economic blocks, and the integration basically of the region. That move is something that should have been consulted across, because now that is like, the legality aspect of it is that they are breaking, a treaty that is in full force. And you see, what happens is that it's not a one-sided affair. So companies that are in Tanzania and they're operating in Kenya, they might be affected by that. But then in terms of legality, she has a point, because you can't just break that, those treaties and put embargoes on items. Yet there are some treaties that you have signed in terms of integration of economic development. So she has a point. Thanks.
Right. She has a point, you say. Andrew, inside Kenya, what's most likely going to be the next move, aside, of course, trying to treat this at the regional level, the EAC level? Are we most likely going to be seeing some sort of tit for tat? I mean, how could this move, affect economic ties between Kenya and Tanzania?
Well, definitely there will be some sort of response, even if it's not from the government. Like right now, people are taking matters in their own hands. We've seen some trade tensions between the two countries before. So what I would think will happen is we are going to have those trade tensions, especially over milk, maize, and even flights. And this move is sort of a retaliatory measure, because Kenyan truckers and retailers do rely on this market. And if Kenyan truckers decide, to sabotage, block the roads, or not even travel to Tanzania, then Tanzania will feel the pinch because they do need our products. And I would say also another field that would really, really be touched on will be tourism, because we have got operators who are concerned, since the two countries, we often share joint regional packages. So it's going to harm both countries, but only if Kenya decides to retaliate.
I dare ask you, Maurice, I'm a bit curious to find out, since you have a lot of experience, when it comes to business across the region, who is likely to feel the pinch more, Tanzania or the other countries in the EAC? Is Tanzania's economy strong enough to withstand the cons that you talked about?
Yeah, looking at it on that perspective, I think Tanzania, they rely more, especially with the advancements that Kenya has made in terms of the strides. Looking at most of our companies in regards to Kenya, they have invested in Tanzania more than what Tanzania has invested in Kenya. So looking at it that way, and the embargoes where maybe companies might feel, okay, this is getting too much and we are being put out. So I think my thinking, and maybe in regards to that, should the companies decide to evacuate the Tanzanian market, then I'm sure that Tanzania will feel it more as compared to Kenya. Thank you.
Right. But how common, Maurice, is it for this sort of protectionist act, as some experts are calling it, that Tanzania is doing, or at least they're claiming they're doing this to protect local businesses and, somehow boost your economy as a result? How common is this in the region?
Well, in the region, I think in the East African section, it's not very common. But I think on what we have seen in the previous, we have seen Tanzania put quite a number of those I would say sanctions. You'll find that when maybe the Kenyan grazers go to, there was a scenario where Kenyan grazers went to Tanzania. Those, they did confiscate those cattle. So it's not very common, but Tanzania is known to do those, maybe not very procedural as what is being done now, but they have been known to, to do the sabotage kind of, but not very, very formal. Informally, then when the diplomacy is applied, they revert back to the normal, expertise. And we have also seen Ethiopia. I think looking outside the normal East African community, Ethiopia now has come in, is they had tried that for the longest. They were closing their market more. It was very hard for external businesses to get into Ethiopia. But I think over time they have realized that they are missing out on trade opportunities with other countries in terms of export and import, and they have opened their market. And of course, by now the economy is really growing at a steadfast process. But to answer you, it's not very common. There is a trend, I would say, that from Tanzania. Thank you.
In the past, as you say, Tanzania, especially in the region, has been doing this from time to time. Ultimately, has it been successful? I mean, such protectionist acts or policies, do they ultimately end up being successful or a failure?
Yeah, from what we have seen, there is no success that happens in that. Looking at the perspective of, we have seen them do that. Then there is some diplomacy, or maybe the advisors who do that, who come to just analyze that situation. We find that they do revert to the normal, agreements that happen. So it has never been formal, but what they have ever done before, it reverts back to the normal, opening the borders for trade. Thank you.
Andrew, as Maurice is saying, this is not the first time Tanzania is doing something like this. In the past, how has Kenya responded and how did it all play out?
That brings me back to what I told you about 2020, where Kenya decided to ban Tanzanian maize imports. And before that, Tanzania had decided to block Kenyan milk exports. So it's something that has happened before, and I think at that time, Tanzania actually decided to revert their stance, and Kenya automatically, because we did not have the problem, we decided, okay, let us continue. Now, this has been the biggest concern, because right now we are in 2025, and if Tanzania gets away with this without challenge, it will send a message to other EAC states, that's the East African Community states, that regional rules are optional. And you'll find now that countries like Uganda or Rwanda might also decide to protect local industries by sidelining their neighbors. So it will chip away at trust and make the East African community look like just a name, countries that are found in the eastern part of Africa, like ECOWAS, countries found in the western part, So what I see happening here is that such a move, if it does not change, will undermine the core idea behind the EAC. And we boast, when our presidents are talking during national events, you have invited Tanzanian President Suluhu, you have invited Ugandan President Museveni. We say that East Africa has got free movement of goods and services, and people. So if leaders don't intervene soon, this could just be a turning point for regional unity, because there is no regional unity. It's just there in the paper.
Right. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, what do you sense is the case now? Are other East African community members all united in, calling Tanzania out and pushing them to sort of turn things around? Definitely.
We will definitely see pressure from other East African countries, but it's very, very slow. The response has been very, very slow. The EAC Secretariat has been largely silent, Kenya's Ministry of Trade has yet to issue a direct statement on this. So people are just thinking that it's drama like last time, where Tanzania will definitely now just go back to how trade is supposed to work with Kenya and other countries. So they're not taking it serious.
But Maurice, that is surprising that other East African community countries are not taking this serious enough, knowing that it could very well have negative impacts on their economies. Should they be more serious? What's the way forward to protecting or preventing such protectionist policies?
The government ought not to make the issues of making a hurried decision. So right now, in terms of the EAC, the guys from trade and the foreign ministers, for now they are watching. But I would say let them apply the diplomacy perspective rather than just rushing and doing the retaliating fire for fire. For now, I think what they are still watching to understand from an economic sense what does this mean for the country. Then from that, I think the first avenue will be diplomacy to understand why this is happening, to do the embargoes on these specific countries. But ultimately, should diplomacy fail, countries will basically might also put in those embargoes. But I see that not happening based on the previous engagements that have been there that did involve diplomacy. So with that, maybe the approach will be, take it slow and understand and see how the integration can happen in terms of the trade relations between the two countries. So for now, I don't think the countries will basically retaliate in the same format.
Okay, thank you very much, Maurice. So no tit for tat needed. That is not going to be helpful to anyone. But diplomacy, you say, should be the solution forward. Maurice Karimi, financial analyst and development economist with experience across East Africa. Thank you very much for your insights. Also, Andrew Wasike, DW correspondent in Nairobi, Kenya.
Get the stories that are shaping the continent here on Africa Link.
Now, inside Tanzania, small traders and manufacturers say it's long overdue. finally protecting them from unfair competition. They argue that foreign dominance was squeezing out locals, and now there's hope for more jobs, fairer competition, and stronger reinvestment in the local economy. But critics argue that Tanzania's ban could backfire. It may cut competition, push businesses underground, and trigger trade retaliation. Proponents of the law further add that it could lead to a more robust local economy and increased job opportunities. So different opinions. But what do you think? We value your input and encourage you to share your thoughts with us on our Facebook page, DW Africa. Listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from. And don't forget to click follow and subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. This show was co-produced and edited by Isaac Mugabe. And I am Eddy Micah Jr. Thanks for listening.
DW, made for minds.